The first rule of changing a person's identity is to never ask why. But the fear sweating off the kid from Hellas Basin told a story far louder than words. Ilara's workshop was a cramped, humid pocket, carved out of the chaotic verticality of the hub, nestled between a noodle bar whose exhaust fan perpetually steamed her window, and a stall selling counterfeit belter void suits. It smelled of antiseptic, ozone, and the sweet, cloying scent of cellular regeneration agent. She was a sculptor, but her medium wasn't clay or marble. It was flesh, bone, and the delicate lattice of a person's face. The kid, who couldn't have been more than 18, stood stiffly in the center of the room. His uniform, a gray, high-collared tunic, was immaculately clean, an affront to the lived-in grime of New Syrtis. It screamed off-worlder, or worse, bastion-born. The people from the Hellas Basin arcology were raised on discipline and suspicion, hermetically sealed in their fortress city. For one of them to be here, in the beating, bleeding heart of the hub, meant something had gone desperately wrong. "I need a new face," he said, his voice a reedy whisper. "A full bio-sculpt. Everything." Ilara leaned back in her chair, letting the hum of the dermal filler warm her back. She gestured with a chrome-tipped finger at the price list glowing on the wall, a menu of services from simple retinal pigment, swaps to full-body chimerics. The journeyman package is top of the line. Untraceable to your previous genetics. It costs. The kid didn't flinch. He pulled a credit chit from his tunic, its surface gleaming under the flickering light of a holographic ad for Saturnian methane that glitched through her window. "I have it, but I need it done now." Now. The most dangerous word in her vocabulary. Now meant pursuit. Now meant someone was hunting, and her workshop was about to become the end of the trail. "Trouble is extra," she said, her voice flat. "They're tracking me," he confirmed, his eyes darting towards the beaded curtain that served as her door. "My family. They hired a finder. I have maybe an hour." Ilara sighed. It was always family. On Mars, you could escape the gravity of Earth, but you could never escape the orbit of your own blood. She held out her hand for the chit. "Get on the table, strip to your undershirt, and turn off your implant." "I can't," he stammered. "It's hardwired, military grade." Of course it was. Hellas Basin paranoia. "Then this is going to be a race. What's your name, kid?" "Tovin." "All right, Tovin. Lie still and try not to think about who's kicking indoors looking for you." The process began. Ilara worked with the detached focus of an artist lost in their craft. A hypospray hissed against Tovin's neck, flooding him with a fast-acting anesthetic and tissue relaxant. A holographic template of a new face, rounder jaw, broader nose, a subtle epicanthic fold to the eyes, shimmered over his own. The autoscalpel, guided by her steady hand, made micro-incisions with inhuman precision. The dermal regenerator hummed to life, its articulated arms gently coaxing skin and cartilage to reshape themselves according to the new blueprint. It was a strange intimacy, peeling back one identity to graft another on top. She saw the ghost of Tovin's father in his jawline, the echo of his mother in the arch of his brow. All of it had to be erased. 40 minutes in, a small, discrete icon on her console blinked red. A network sniffer she'd set up for just such occasions. Someone was running an active proximity scan, pinging for a specific implant ID within a 200-meter radius. The hunter was in the hub. "They're close," she said, her voice calm, though her heart rate quickened. She nudged the dial on the regeneration accelerator. The hum of the machine intensified. "Try to relax. Stress elevates cortisol, and cortisol makes the tissue reject the graft. You'll end up looking like a melted candle." Tovin's breath hitched. She could feel the tremors through the padded table. The beaded curtain rustled. Ilara froze, her hand hovering over the controls. A woman stepped inside, her movements economical and quiet. She wore a long, dusty coat that did little to hide the professional stillness of her posture. Her eyes, a flat cybernetically enhanced gray, scanned the room before settling on Ilara. They were cold, patient, and utterly devoid of judgment. This wasn't MDF security. This was a specialist, a finder. "I'm looking for a boy," the finder said, her voice as neutral as her gaze. "Goes by Tovin. Came this way." Ilara didn't look at the table. She kept her eyes on the woman, projecting an air of weary annoyance. "Lots of people come this way. This is the hub. You want the lost and found? Try the assembly guard, the me." Finder's eyes flickered to the figure on the table. Tovin's new face was a swollen, bruised mask, the skin flushed and raw from the accelerated process. He looked like he'd lost a fight with a cargo loader. "And him?" "Him?" Ilara shrugged, turning to a tray of sterile tools. "Bad luck at a gambling table in the Warrens. Bad enough he needed his jaw reset and his nose put back in the middle of his face. He paid in advance." The finder took a step closer. Tovin was shaking a barely perceptible tremor. The finder's gaze sharpened, catching the movement. For a long, silent moment, the only sounds were the thrum of the regenerator and the distant, chaotic symphony of the hub. The finder was weighing the odds, the cost of a mistake, the mess of a confrontation, the certainty of her intel versus the bruised, unrecognizable face on the table. Finally, she gave a slow, deliberate nod. "If you see a scared kid in a gray tunic, my comm frequency is public record. There's a reward." She turned and slipped back through the curtain, vanishing as silently as she had appeared. Ilara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She worked for another 10 minutes, her hands steady once more, applying the final sealant, spray that would reduce the swelling and mask the bruising. She helped Tovin sit up. He touched his new face, his fingers exploring the unfamiliar landscape of his own skin. The reflection in the polished chrome of a tool cabinet showed him a stranger, a tired, world-weary-looking dock worker maybe, not a son of the Bastion. "It's done," Ilara said, cleaning her instruments. He fumbled with his tunic, pulling out a second credit chit. "The extra, for the trouble." She took it. "A new face won't do you any good if you still carry the same fear," she said, her voice softer than before. "She saw it in your eyes, kid. That's what almost got you caught. Lose the fear, or this face is just a mask, and masks can be taken off." Tovin nodded, the movement stiff and uncertain. He stood, gave one last look at the woman who had unmade him, and walked out into the hazy, neon-drenched chaos of the hub. He melted into the river of humanity, just another drop, another anonymous face in a city built on them. Ilara watched him go, then turned back to her console. The credits were confirmed, enough to keep the lights on and the regenerator humming for another month. She was an artist, a technician, a liar. In New Syrtis, in the city of layers and second chances, they were all the same profession: survival.